Christina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our 5th episode of Lunch and Learn, which are designed to be short, little bite-sized discussions about the publishing world. So today, I'm so excited to be here with 2 of the 5 leadership ladies at Girl Friday. We have Lam and Christina, and it's always super exciting to be able to talk to you guys because I know how busy you are. So thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Well, we are going to talk today about some common questions that I know I hear in my job at Girl Friday, but also I have scoured the internet to see the different questions that indie authors have about the publishing process. So I've kind of combined them all here. We're going to do some rapid fire answers and get some wisdom from you 2 ladies. So without any further ado, let's get started. So Lam, here's a question for you.
Yes.
I hear that traditional publishers give authors a monetary advance. Is that true?
Bing, yes, that is true. But the advance might not be, I think the way that works might not be totally understood by everyone. So the publishing model is interesting in that your book has finally been approved. The editorial board has said, yes, we want to publish it. So behind that, of course, just like in all businesses, they're going to make a profit and loss statement. They're going to make educated guesses based on a whole variety of factors about how many books they think that they're going to sell overall, at what price points and different editions. So they do, all of their factoring and come up with an amount. What the advance that is given is, the technical term is an advance against future earnings. So this is how this works. They say, we think we're going to make $10,000 overall on your book. So we're going to give you an advance of $5,000. That advance is yours to keep. You don't have to pay it back unless you're in breach of your contract, but people are not usually in breach of their contract. Even if the book doesn't sell a single copy, that $5,000 is yours to keep. However, you will not make any other money on the sales of your book until it has earned out that initial $5,000 that they paid to you. So the truth of it is that most advances are much smaller than people think they are. And the publishers are it's a tough, low margin business, and they're doing the best they can, especially a lot of books don't sell many copies. So most books don't earn out, and the truth is that you probably won't see any money after that advance payment.
What?
It is true. It is actually true. It is especially trickier in fiction and certain kinds of books. Other books with more reliable sales, guidebooks. I know that Christina, sitting right there, has royalty checks pouring in from her books. I will tell you that from books I have published traditionally, those royalty checks are not pouring in. One of them is just close to earning out its advance, but it can take years and it might never happen. So that is the truth about advances.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's crazy. Because it kind of feels like you win the lotto. You think you're going to get this big fat check and it's going to be awesome. And yeah, not so much.
Yeah, I think those numbers.
Sorry, see, honey.
I think those numbers also have just been going down as publishing has gotten more risk averse, and it's harder to, and takes a big investment in marketing to get books noticed. And so they're putting their money toward a few big books, and the smaller debut books are sort of bearing the brunt of it, paying the price. And so that's a little heartbreaking, honestly. But I mean, you can see how the numbers work that way, but it's too, it's hard.
Yeah. We've also heard anecdotally from so they're called mid-list authors. So these aren't people who are, New York Times bestselling list, and they're not 5 copies, but they're reliably selling in the, tens of thousands of books, that their advances have been steadily coming down. And I know that the Authors Guild too. I'm a member of the Authors Guild, and that certainly is what authors have been reporting to us. So can you make a living as a writer? Yes. Is it really, really difficult? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, here is question number 2. Christina, can a traditional publisher, if I get a book deal, change the name of my book and the front cover without my permission?
Yes, they can. It's so shocking, really. I remember being surprised by this answer when I discovered it myself. But this is, and that is actually one of the most important considerations, I think, at least when I talk to clients who are trying to figure out which way they want to go. Traditional publishers have a lot of control, and in some ways it makes sense because they are invested, they are fronting the money for the book, they are doing the book production, they understand sales and what bookstores are looking for, and they understand the genre. So they do have a lot of expertise on the one hand. On the other, they don't necessarily, if you have a very strong brand and you have a vision and you have a model, and you might not want to relinquish that control. It might be very important to you to have exactly the cover that's going to represent you. And so the publisher's interests and the author's interests are not always perfectly aligned. And that's something to consider. We're trying to figure out whether a traditional publisher is going to do right by your vision.
I would add to that it's not only even the publishers. So of course they have a marketing department and the editor and, all of their smart folks having, weighing in. But it's also the distribution team. So you go to the publisher at a sales conference, and then there's an entire other group of people who sell into bookstores and into wholesalers, and they are saying, well, this is what we're seeing, so here are our opinions, and then layered onto the publisher's opinions, and all of those get filtered back. And I have talked to so many clients, both Christina and I used to be developmental editors, and an edit is nothing compared to the emotional weight of the title discussions and the covers. It's really, really emotional for people, and I get that. It's the first thing you see, it's your shorthand for it, it encapsulates, it crystallizes your vision into this one thing, and it can be so hard and heartbreaking. And sometimes you can be just wowed, and it also can go the other way. But yeah, it's it's quite a minefield.
Yeah.
Well, Lamb, since I have you, I want to talk to you about this commonly asked question. Do independently published books look different than traditionally published books?
What an excellent question. And Christina said something before we started, which was, they can, was
Right.
the best answer. And boy, they used to. I remember, Girl Friday's been in business since 2006. And in the early days, could you tell the difference between a self-published book and a traditionally published book? Yep.
What do you mean? The binding or just the cover?
The quality of the paper, the quality of the printing, the binding, absolutely. They were coming out of like book vending machines. It was, they were trashy. They looked really terrible. And it was still considered sort of the option of last resort. And so people also weren't investing in a professional cover designer and imagery in, you can still see that is one of the biggest differences now, I think, is that you can see when someone, not whether it's self-published or not, but is self-published, has someone invested in getting experts to craft the package, or have they not? And that is absolutely still crystal clear. Now, can you have hardcovers? Yes. Can you have jackets? And can you have fancy things? Yes. There are some of those, you do have to have your books printed in a traditional way in order to get those, but you don't have to do that through a publisher. You can absolutely do that as a self-publisher. Even print-on-demand books, and those are books that are not created until someone orders a copy, look really wonderful. And we have had tons of clients come to the office and we've put, books side by side and said, please tell us which one you think was traditionally published and which wasn't. And you can't tell the difference when done correctly. I laugh.
Yeah. Asterisk and disclaimer right there at the end. Okay, here's the next question that I have for Christina. If I indie publish my book, can a traditional publisher come in and pick it up and repackage it and publish it?
Yes, actually, we do get that question. We don't get it as much anymore, but so yes, because what publishers are more likely to do in most cases, if you are a runaway success, is say, tell me about your next book. We'd love to work with you on your next book, because they might feel that your first book has run its course, found its audience, and maybe it wouldn't be a sound financial investment to republish that one at that stage. But since you've done all the work of building your readership and delivering to your fans, and you have this base, suddenly you're like you've got proof of concept that is a really nice thing for a publisher to be able to present to the editorial board. So it is so it does happen. I would say we generally discourage people from having that be their plan. It's a nice, if that's something they want. A lot of people don't decide they don't want a traditional publisher after having a seat at the table and having as much involvement as you in the indie process. But so I would say it's still the exception, but it can happen. It just doesn't, it's not necessarily a path to traditional publication that I would say is a real predictor of success. But
yeah. And Lamb, do you think that that's true? That's usually what you tell people.
I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, yes, you could be doing, we have also been acquisitions editors before. And if you can, those are the people who are out looking for authors to add to their list for traditional publishers. If I saw someone who I thought that I could get for their next book, who has already proven that they could sell 100,000 books on their own, it means they're totally dynamic at branding. They have absolutely, as Christina said, hooked into their readership. They know what they're doing. I would be totally remiss not to make them an offer. Now, whether or not they feel they want that offer, as Christina said, whether or not that's the goal anymore, I think that is slightly shifting. But yeah, if I were the publisher, I would be on it.
Yeah. The next question that I saw in a lot of the different chat boards out there right now is very timely, is that should I wait until all this, meaning COVID, is over to publish my book, or should I rush to get it out right now because everyone's stuck at home and reading? So what do you tell people when they ask, should I wait until sunnier times or get it out now?
Is that for me or for
That's for
me?
you.
It's so interesting. I used to have my lashes done in the pre-COVID times, and they're not done right now. But my beloved Lashley, but she is, and
getting into it now. Now it's
this is very personal, but there's a point to all of this. So this is what she does normally by day. She was shut down by COVID. And in the meantime, what did she do? She finalized writing an awesome vampire book, had it edited, and now is like looking for representation. So yeah, you should be writing it now. I don't know why. It is true that people are reading. Books aren't going to go away. If I think of all of the products, and they might not be sold or created or made in quite the same way ever again, or maybe not during this time, but people have predicted the demise of books forever. It was going to be this, it was going to be this.
Yeah.
People want books, they love them. So I would say if you have downtime or you've watched everything you can watch on Netflix and you want to get your butt in gear, why wouldn't you? Yeah, especially marketing, there's a way to, I mean, it doesn't matter that you're not doing a reading in a bookstore. It doesn't matter, you know, you can get it out there, you can publicize it, you can market it, you can do all of those things remotely. That's why we're all still in business and working from our respective homes. So
Yeah.
do it, is
Yeah.
what I would say.
I would also just add that COVID is giving people a chance to read and look at things online. But I also think there are other considerations that I would think would be more, that are even more pressing now. We have, if you're thinking about putting a book out, do you want to put it out, the first week in November, or when it's all going to be election coverage all the time? Or do you want, we also have holidays coming up, like work on your book now and then think very carefully about exactly when you want to release it and when it's going to make sense, when people aren't going to be fully distracted by other things. It depends so much on the genre of your book, but I would say this is a good time to be working on it, and then just look at the landscape, in the months ahead, and think about what's going to make sense for getting it out there.
Yeah. And that's great, Christina, because that leads to the next question is, how long does it take to indie publish a book typically?
It's such good news for most people. We generally tell people that it takes 6 to 9 months. It can be done in less time if there's a book that's really if there's a reason to advise it just because they want to hold the book in their hands, which is valid, but we want them, but it's worth giving the book a chance to go through the process appropriately. And again, I would say a lot of it depends. People come to us and say, we want the book out as soon as possible. And a lot of it is figuring out when is going to be the ideal moment, and making sure that you not only give the book a chance to go through the process, but also that you line up your marketing and think really carefully about that launch. So it's not about how soon you can launch as much as it is about how well prepared you can be to launch effectively and make the most of it. So, but it's a much shorter timeline than with traditional publishers, which is often in the 18 to 24 month range. And so for people who want a book out for them, or they want to be developing a series, or they want, there are so many reasons people want to have books in hand, indie publishing is a really great avenue.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the marketing component, Christina. As the marketing person,
Talking to
so
you.
important.
As the marketing director, you have a feeling about that, do you?
Well, yeah, because I totally get it and get to rushing your book out. I mean, I think it's really exciting. You want to meet your baby. You want to see it out in the world. But at the same time, to do things correctly, you do kind of have to let it breathe, is kind of what I say there. But that's a whole other lunch and learn. The final question that I have for you guys is for Lamb. I want my book in a bookstore. My indie book in a bookstore. Is that possible to have my indie published book in my bookstore?
Well, I don't know about you, but my local indie bookstore is closed. So actually they're closed. And here's a shout out for Thursday's Books. Woo, woo. I'm going to pick up a book curbside just today that I ordered to share the love a little bit. My first question to you is why? And I have seen my books in bookstores. Mostly my children pointed them out. I always found it actually a little embarrassing when they were talking about it. Do you want it because you think it will legitimize you? Do you think you're not a real writer until you see a book in a bookstore? Or do you think that's where you're going to sell books? Because that used to be the case, and we love independent bookstores, and they play a huge role in curation, especially, and they're so knowledgeable, and they know their communities, and they can get a book into your hand or make a recommendation that you're not going to go through all of the different screens online and find it. The chances of finding it would have been low. So there is joy to that. The latest, I was just looking at some BookScan numbers they report book sales, And 6 to 9% of book sales in the United States happen in independent bookstores. And we can say that is very sad. We can say, oh, the industry has changed. We get to have all of the feelings that we want about that, but there it is. So if you're looking for it as a way to really boost your sales, I'd say that's not totally the reason why you should be doing that. There are some books, like I said, that you want to look through, or maybe they're a gift book. There's certain book types that obviously lend themselves, and hopefully we will go back to a time when we get to go be in person and, you know, touching the beautiful pages and looking at the beautiful photographs. And so to that end, I know at Girl Friday, we are looking into increased distribution models for independent authors so that people could have a way of placing their books in bookstores. You can do it now. People can hand sell to their local bookstore the best quality book that you can have. You have to give them a return option. They're kind of, you know, doing it on consignment, doing a really concise pitch and telling what is the bookseller going to get out of having your book. Really works. And so I would say if you're an independent publisher, I don't think that's your first consideration. And I would start asking some other questions about your goals.
Yeah.
I would just reiterate just quickly about the genre, because I think there are some books that sell so well as ebooks. I'm thinking about series and science fiction and authors who are building huge loyalty online, and their goal is to just get books into people's hands quickly as possible, and you know, and ebooks are part of that. And I'm speaking, I mean, Powell, I live in the town of Powell's, and it is a treasure, is our icon in our city, and so I value the role that traditional bookstores play. But yes, it depends very much on the type of book that you've got.
Yeah, that's great advice. Ladies, it's been so great speaking with you. I love hearing your insight. I know that I always learn a lot, so I'm sure it's really beneficial to everybody watching. So thank you so much. And before we started taping this, as you know, we were discussing that we should have a separate one about some more GFP specific things as far as the investment and earning your money back. So just to anyone and everyone that's watching, I hope that you'll come back and get that information. But thank you again for your time today. And we hope to see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.